So as we know, firstly, thank you all for being here. As we know, recess is essential for children's physical health, their social development, their emotional well-being, yet few states have formal policies requiring recess in schools. So Lysa, can you tell us about the state of recess in the United States? What states guarantee recess in schools?
Surprisingly, not as many as we need. Just to get us all grounded in the space of recess, it's the source of joy in childhood. We've not, right? So we know how important it is to just our well-being, to our learning and our development. And yet in the 50 states plus the District of Columbia, there's 26 states that have some type of something around recess, yet only 10 of them have policies that are either mandating recess or pieces of it where they're not withholding punishment or there's some criteria in place. Only 10 of the 50 plus DC.
Okay, so tell me the importance. How does recess kind of help a child maybe moderate their mood or their day?
Yeah, it's everything. You think about the responsibilities of childhood, the learning that has to take place, the socialization that has to take place, the pressure that they're under, the competition that they have with real life experiences versus living through their devices. Recess is the space where they find their belonging. It's the space where they learn. It's where they get their physical activity. You know, we've got the CDC recommending 60 minutes a day of physical activity. That's not happening. Recess policies are mandating anywhere between 20 minutes to 40 minutes, I think, in Arkansas has the highest mandate. Wow. Not even meeting the mandatory physical activity requirements or the having considerations for the learnings that happen through being outside with young people that are your age and learning in the same way that you do.
So Erin, what's the connection between recess, we had talked a little bit about physical activity and student well-being overall? Like how does it help a child really moderate and be present and able to learn?
Yeah, so we think about recess, we often think about physical activity as kind of our go-to. And of course, physical activity has lots of benefits for kids with respect to physical health, mental health. We know that kids who are active during the day do better on tests and have better academic outcomes. But recess is really interesting because it kind of falls at this intersection between physical activity and play. So I think of it as like a Venn diagram. And play, independent of physical activity, has its own benefits. So play is unstructured, it's social, and play has benefits with social interactiveness and peer interactions and academic outcomes on its own. And so I like to think that recess is like the best of both worlds. So by having kids engage in active play, they have those health benefits, mental health benefits, and it benefits learning, which is often most important for schools.
And they learn negotiation and compromise and all that fun stuff. Senator Saval, I was wondering if you could talk about lessons from legislative efforts to protect recess time and address inequities in infrastructure.
Absolutely. So Pennsylvania is one of those states that unfortunately does not mandate recess time. There have been legislative efforts. Most recently in 2023, my colleague Rep. Danielle Friel-Otten introduced legislation that also paired recess with healthy nutrition. Unfortunately, that legislation didn't have a vote, didn't have a hearing. And so we have a sort of unequal landscape. Philadelphia, the city that I represent, there's also no mandates. There's sort of a lot that's left to the discretion of principals. But another issue that I think is related to that is the infrastructure for play. A lot of schools across Pennsylvania lack play space. Fundamentally, 1/3 of schools in Philadelphia do not have play space for recess. 1/3. Wow. This is one of the largest school districts in the country. Now that number is actually an improvement from 2018 when 2/3 of schools lacked such facilities. And we'll want to talk about those improvements. Now the legislature, state legislatures generally have a critical role to play. One, of course, is in creating those mandates. But what could be paired with mandates is an overall effort to provide play space. And Pennsylvania's legislature is right now involved in a critical funding effort. Funding is, of course, one of the main roles that legislatures play in school funding overall. And districts across Pennsylvania it's one of the most unequal states when it comes to state funding, such that a Commonwealth court, our appeals court in 2023, rendered our school funding system unconstitutional. So we're involved in a years-long effort, well overdue, to remedy inequalities among districts, which will help remedy broad infrastructural issues in our schools, including play space. That's just legislative efforts. I think there's also a critical role, of course, for advocates to play in this process. There's a group that I want to highlight in Philadelphia called Lift Every Voice, which is a parent-led advocacy group that has been campaigning recently for a joy-based budget for our school district. And they actually are trying to create a chief officer of joy. And the idea is to...
Can I apply for that job, please?
Yeah, this job's open. And the idea is, to pair the need and desire for play, among other sources of joy, with infrastructure planning. And I think there's a real idea that parents, of course, should be involved in the process of whatever goes on in terms of remedying infrastructure across our district. Finally, of course, there's, in addition to kind of broad-based funding, there's kind of project-by-project funding. I've been involved in particular efforts of that kind. I've helped secure money for a new play space in one of the schools in my district, which we're, of course, very proud of, looking forward to breaking ground on it. But it really took the effort of parents who, frankly, in this case, were better resourced than most parent groups in the district, had access to connections and activity and, even pro bono architecture expertise in order to produce a plan that then they could leverage. It's great. It's by no means a solution. And so how can we replicate that model across a district with less well-resourced schools, less well-resourced parent groups, so that we don't run into creating more inequalities among among schools within a district.
And Lysa, I was wondering, can you build on the point about access to safe places to play?
Yeah, I appreciate what Senator Saval was describing. It gets to the center of the work that we do at KABOOM, which is really about making sure that we are addressing these inequities that we see in our systems, in our parks, in our cities, where you've got large parts of the population that don't have access to places to play within their communities or even their schools, where, at first thought you would think every school should have an outdoor space. And this is where recess policy works hand in hand with investments in infrastructure to make sure that we are looking at where are their needs. But we work closely with Baltimore City Public Schools, where over the past 10 years, we've been trying to support their commitment to a whole child approach and working across their schools that have a very similar situation in terms of access, not just in having play spaces, but in having quality play spaces. And so oftentimes there is access, but it's not the quality that is needed to have to serve the developmental needs of a child. And we've built 26 play spaces with them that has allowed us to start to move the needle, where we're looking at, like you've moved it from 2/3 to 1/3, over time able to solve the problem. We've got most of our cities, there's subsets of the cities where kids don't have a playground within 1 mile of where they live. They also don't have a play space within their schools. If they do, that play space oftentimes is very limited in its design in terms of what it can do. So maybe it might have a slide and a swing, or a swing that's broken, but it doesn't have the additional considerations for learning, like an outdoor classroom. It doesn't have considerations for how all different abilities learn and engage with outdoor space and other children. And so it gets a little bit complicated here, because the problem isn't just to mandate recess, it's also to make sure that we are investing in very solid, healthy infrastructure that is going to create the landscape to provide the benefits that play and play spaces and being outdoor can have for a child's development.
It kind of has me thinking about food deserts, but there's like a play desert, or many, many play deserts. There's no safe, engaging place for so many of the nation's children to really run around, be free, and be children.
Yeah, nothing at all. And oftentimes in a lot of these places that do even have recess policies, kids are going outside and they're playing on blacktops.
Right.
It's hot and there's nothing to do. They're having to use their little imaginations to make the most of it. And yet they are hoping to go back inside where it's cool and there's activities for them to do because investments haven't been properly made in that outdoor space.
And to all of you, and perhaps starting in the end here, what are the role of parents, educators? Like, how can people come together to ensure or try to ensure that every child has an adequate place to be a kid?
Yeah, so actually something my team has been working on for the past year with funding from the Bloomberg American Health Initiative is a policy package for development and passage of state-level recess laws. So we know from prior research that states where they have a strong recess law in place, kids are more likely to have access to recess during the day. And as we heard from Lysa, only 10 states in the US have recess policies that are on the books and are strong. And so the policy package will have tools for community members, parents, and other advocates to work with their state legislatures to hopefully pass new recess laws. And we will be launching this policy package in December. So if you want to learn more, the different components will also be posted on the Bloomberg American Health Initiative website.
I'm wondering if you can tell us a little bit more, like what does an adequate play space look like, and what age child might that serve?
Me or
Yeah, sure. Anyone
sure.
who has the knowledge on it.
Adequate play space, I mean, really, we think about recess for both elementary and middle school students,
Okay.
and so it can really vary depending on the age of the child, the number of students in the school, and what those students need. So I think it does tend to be somewhat school-specific based on those things, what grades it serves and things like that. So.
Okay, anyone want to close out with their 30 seconds?
You know, one of the things that we've been talking about is the quality of play space. I mean, green play spaces are also, I think, a thing that we need to be looking forward to. You know, the Philadelphia Water Department has an initiative to help create green play spaces to capture excess rainfall, tree canopy. You know, it's not a coincidence that many of these schools, you know, are in less well-resourced schools or have blacktops or, don't have play spaces that are adequate. But they need overall broad-based funding, and we don't want to create inequalities even within schools among which have green play spaces and which don't. So as we face the effects of climate change, I hope that we invest considerably in that as well.
Okay, well, thank you so much. Thank you all.